Hey there, welcome back to the Awaken Mind. I'm so happy to have you back, and I know Bianca is probably very happy to have you on this episode as well. And we're going to be diving in to some really good stuff related to manifestation and why manifestation is not a one size fits all concept or technique. So I'm really excited to invite Bianca on. And Bianca Lisette is a manifestation coach who helps people manifest their dream lives 5 times faster by removing subconscious habits and applying tailored manifestation techniques. Bianca, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, and so I really love and also when we are planning podcast episodes, by the way, I will ask the guests like what are you most passionate talking about, because when someone is really passionate about talking about something, it's going to show up in the podcast episode. And when Bianca said a one size fits all approach and how that's not the case, I was like, that's it. That's definitely what we need to focus on. And especially in this new year in 2025 and being able to create new goals and new habits and attract the things that you want in your life, manifest the things you want in your life. And so, Bianca, I want to start by asking you, how did you get into being a manifestation coach? Where did this journey start to lead you as you're moving along?
Yeah, so it really started personally for me when my first business failed. As soon as I entered the workforce, I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I kind of just tried to utilize the skills that I had. And at the time, I
Mm.
created a virtual assistant business. And initially, it was really successful. I was making a lot of money, being young, having no other responsibilities, everything was going
Yeah.
great. But because I had never run a business before, it eventually failed miserably and I completely lost everything, my entire income, my place, my status, all of my
Mm.
employees, just lost it all. And when I got to that point, I had to move into my aunt's guest room and I was just completely lost and feeling like what am I going to do now? I'm going to have to work a 9 to 5 and all of the wonderful things that go through your head after a business failure. And my cousin had actually came over one day and she said, I want you to watch this documentary called The Secret. It's super cool. I
Oh,
think you
yeah.
might be into it. And I was like, that sounds really boring, but I have nothing to do. So Netflix it is. And after I watched the documentary, I was completely consumed. I was obsessed. I was like, it sounds like magic. I have to make this work for me one way or the other. And over the next almost 9.5 years, I spent every dollar, every second of the day pretty much just trying to figure out, how to make this make sense. How can I make it work for me and also find the proof
Yes.
that it really works.
That's awesome. It's really interesting when you share or people share stories in general of these failed businesses or things that just don't work out, and then eventually it's that stepping stone or that recorrection on what you are supposed to be doing in this world, and it sounds like you figured it out. It really does.
Yes, that's
So
exactly what happened.
yeah. Well, when it comes to one size fits all and diving into this topic, can you share for me why you believe this isn't the case and how understanding those patterns, how does that work from that perspective?
Yeah, so it was something that I kind of noticed right away, right? That a lot of these
Mm.
gurus are teaching these methods and they're telling everybody to do it. And it's like, okay, well, everybody's really different. Everybody's schedule is different. Their belief systems are different. Their trauma is different. So, how
Yeah.
can these methods of, just keeping it basic journaling and meditation and thinking the right thoughts, how
I
is
was
that
going
going
to
to
ask
work?
you what
Yeah.
methods are you seeing that are really common?
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, they do work, but you have to do them in a specific way for that person, such as meditating, right? Not everybody can meditate for an hour and a half.
Mhm.
It's unreasonable for some people. So it really comes down to understanding who you are as a person, who you are as a soul, and what you really have time to commit to.
So, when you're working with clients specifically, is that what you do? Really identify what their lifestyle is, the time that they have capable, even their personality? Because there may be some techniques that you're right. There's some hypnosis techniques that don't work for some people and they work great for other people. And you're looking in your toolbox and figuring out that specific person. So is that how you approach it as well when you're working with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And I even take it
Okay.
as far as doing like a psychological questionnaire to
Okay.
understand not only who they are now, but what have they been through that has got them to that point and what has created that belief system that they're not even aware of.
When they're doing that psychological questionnaire, do they come with you with a lot of new awarenesses? Like, wow, I didn't realize. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually just saw that recently with a couple clients and they were like, I was filling out this questionnaire and I started realizing that I have a lot more problems than I thought. And I'm like, well,
Oh,
that's that's not my
it's
goal, but
awareness. But we have to know I just did an interview with someone on awareness and we have to know it doesn't feel good to be aware and to look in the mirror and to understand what's going on. And it's necessary because you're, like you said, you'll never know where you need to go unless you know where you've been and kind of what you're struggling with at the time. What do you commonly see? I'm just curious in these, like in the questionnaires and blocks, or why someone's having a hard time manifesting. Is there a trend you're starting to notice?
yeah, so from what I've seen, I specifically help people manifest more money, their version of a
Okay.
dream life, which comes with like the freedom and the wealth and the success. And something that I
Sure.
notice is you're programmed a lot based on that from childhood. So whatever your
Mhm.
parents thought about money or whatever their experience was, or maybe you didn't have enough food in the house, those things really come into play in creating those thoughts and how you treat money or how you receive money.
Can you give me some examples of some of those beliefs that people have related to money?
Yeah,
What you've noticed?
the most common ones are the ones that are like the most cliche, believe it or not. It's,
Yeah.
you have to work really hard for money, or there's not enough money, only the rich get richer, those kinds of things.
I know I like that you said you have to work extra hard for money because that's certainly something that I struggled with a lot to release that belief system. And I think a part of that too, and I just want to get your perspective on it, is um, our generations. Like I know as generations are going younger, they're more be strategic, work less, make more, like create the life you want, and entrepreneurship and breaking down old systems and all of those things. But when we look at like our grandparents or parents or great grandparents, it seemed and appeared like it was a very work hard mentality. Do you notice that as well with a lot of your clients coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really was that older generation that, I hate to say it, was programmed by
We
society.
love them.
We love them, but
Yeah.
they were brainwashed. Of course, the government
Yeah.
wants us to be those employees, those worker ants, right? But we just
Right.
have to accept that there is a better way to enjoy your life.
Yeah, there's always a better way,
Mhm.
for sure. When we are focused on that better way, or the way that the subconscious mind is influencing, how do you notice on your day-to-day the subconscious mind influences either habits, thoughts, or beliefs, especially related to attracting money more specifically?
Yeah, so I had actually worked with a client recently who was a boutique owner, and she didn't even
Okay.
realize that, she's trying to get all these sales. She just opened up super small boutique in Miami, and she's like pretty much sabotaging sales. And she didn't even realize it until we got in the call and really dug deep and started understanding, why is she not making over a certain amount? Why is she not profitable, And it's because she only believed that she was worth receiving a certain amount. So although she was, getting these
Mm,
opportunities to get more, having collaborations, more people coming in the store, she was self-sabotaging without her even being aware of it. And this is just one example of how the subconscious
yeah.
mind can, affect something like that.
For sure. I'm curious, how was she self-sabotaging?
So she gave me an
What are some
example.
things?
Yeah, she gave me an example of a time that a client came in and wanted to spend like over $500 on a bunch of things, but they kept asking her opinion on, the way that they fit or how long would it last, the material.
Yeah.
And she just wasn't doing, her job as in selling the product. She was just, overthinking it and giving not the best answers. So all in all, the person was like, "Oh, I'm just good getting a t-shirt."
Do you think that in a situation like that, especially, I mean, this is more of a business owner style question. And I know that we have listeners that aren't business owners, but this is relevant to everything. But do you feel that in situations like this, the feeling afterwards, there's almost a fear of, because what comes to my mind is an additional follow up fear for her could have been, oh my gosh, what if they buy $500 worth of stuff and then they hate it? Do you feel
Mhm.
like that also play okay, I know you probably worked through that with her, but
Yeah, definitely. And a more, I guess, a more common example of people who aren't business owners is,
Mhm.
for example, if you're still in your 9 to 5, you're climbing the corporate ladder, whatever it is, and you're getting these projects and you find yourself either procrastinating when they're due or not giving it your best and making sure, you're doing a quality analysis before you submit it, those kinds of things, that is self-sabotaging as well. Like in the back of your mind, you're like, this isn't your best, but you're just doing whatever to get it done. There's things that are going to come from that, and it's not going to be the best experience.
Yes, procrastination is self-sabotage. Can we scream that from the
Mhm.
rooftops?
Yes, exactly.
Do you, notice a lot of people who don't realize that they're procrastinating to self-sabotage? It seems like a very unconscious thing that happens.
Yeah, it's actually one of the biggest patterns. Like, regardless,
Mm,
I am a manifestation coach, so I do work with other types of things that people want to manifest, like an SP or better health. It's all
yes.
based around procrastination and self sabotage.
Phew.
it's, it's heavy stuff.
It is heavy stuff. I know you work primarily with money, but I really want to focus on a life partner for a second. And where do you notice that people are sabotaging the most and attracting the right person in their life?
Yeah, so they're really, and I know this is repetitive, but they're really sabotaging
Yeah,
themselves because of what they believe they deserve.
they
Some
deserve.
people are
Yeah.
like, I want the partner, I want the love, I know I deserve it. Well, you don't if you're not loving yourself first, choosing you first.
Is that the same mindset and strategy that you use with money as well, as focusing on loving yourself first
Yes,
and to
absolutely.
attracting?
Hmm.
Yeah. It's like we only receive what we think we deserve, right?
Definitely. And self
Oh,
concept is definitely, step one.
yes. Yeah. Well, so when it comes to creating your vision of your dream life and understanding what your goals are, especially in 2025, everyone's setting new goals right now. How do you recommend aligning conscious goals with what's happening beneath the surface, with self sabotage, with procrastination, with whatever else comes up at that time?
Yeah, I always say baby steps and,
Mm,
do the analysis first. Even if it's just a brain dump, like writing down, what you're feeling, what thoughts constantly come up that you feel like, make you feel bad about yourself, getting those things out first before doing anything.
So, would this be more of a someone sitting down in self awareness and reflection and writing down all of those things? And then what would they do with it afterwards, in addition to going to a manifestation coach to
Yeah.
release
Yeah.
and
No, I
attract?
mean, even with my clients, it really depends how deep it is. Like, for
Yeah.
example, if you had a rough childhood, right, and you really struggled, and, whether it's related to money or love or whatever it is, and you feel like you need a little bit more work for someone to pull that out, I always, always recommend hypnosis because it is absolutely life changing. And it gets in the part of your brain that you're not able to get into by yourself. But then again, there is other people who are like, it's just at the surface, it's just a couple things lingering.
Yeah.
And in that case, you can spend some time either journaling about it every day, scripting a new reality, or doing just light meditation or some visualizing things, 5 to 10 minutes a day, nothing intense. But you really
Yeah.
have to, figure out where your problems are and how deep they are first.
Okay. How would you know if someone's problems are really deep? Is it more so like childhood versus something going on right now in life?
So, when you're doing the analysis, right, there are a couple
Mhm.
things to keep in mind in regards to how much it's affecting you. Like, what I do with certain clients is I'll say, okay, write down the top 3 thoughts negative thoughts that you have, or the top 3 problems that you have. And next to it, write down a certain number of how many times a day they come up, or how many times you're
Oh,
thinking about how they
wow.
affect you. So,
It's
if
like a
it's
food
over,
diary.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's a brain diary.
yes, but if it's over a certain number, like more than once or twice a day, like you've got to do the work. You need to pull that out and get rid of it, because that's
Mm.
just, it's affecting you more than you realize.
I feel like that's our human nature too, is not really to ignore, but to not realize. I mean, the common situation we've all had is that we have a problem, we suffer through the problem, and then when the problem's gone, we're like, oh my gosh, that's how much that was affecting me, and we don't actually realize until it's happening to
Mhm.
be able to dive into that. Do you ever have people? This is what I hear, and maybe you've had a lot of this insight as well. Is have you ever had people who say, "Well, I don't know what my thoughts are," or have a hard time identifying what my thoughts are?
Absolutely. But it's like, if you sit down in a quiet setting and you really just think about it, even for 10 minutes, you will be so surprised what you're able to pull out of your mind when you have that pen in hand. I promise.
Yeah, yeah, and the big key there is quiet time.
Hmm. Absolutely.
No, no, not in the car, but
Mm-mm.
sitting with something, with a pen and paper, being able to dive into that. Um, when you say baby steps too, I'm curious of uh, when we're taking baby steps on something, how does someone ideally know if too much, I'm going too far right now, I'm starting to sabotage, or I'm in too much fear? How can they start to identify, ooh, this may be too big of a stretch at the time?
Yeah, so I break my process down to kind of,
Okay.
it's kind of like a brain marathon, right? You want to prep your brain to start realizing these things. If you just try to dive right in, you're not going to notice when you're doing it, because you're in such a habitual pattern that it's hard
Mm,
to be like, okay, hold on, this doesn't feel right. Break it down in the steps, do the analysis, right? And then just slowly start playing with your thoughts. See when these things come up, see how you feel. Pay attention to your vibration, as they would say, which just means you're feeling throughout the
yeah, we're
day.
gonna dive into
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
And and see what comes up. But it's not
Yeah.
something that, I think, especially what I see with my clients, is that you can't just dive in and instantly start noticing what's wrong or what's affecting you without doing that step process first.
Okay. Well, and speaking of vibration, can you go in detail if someone's like, "Well, I don't know what my vibration is," or how does someone know if they're in an attracting vibration? Can you go more in depth into that?
Yeah, so I remember when I got started, that was the biggest thing for me. Like, I think the first like two
Okay.
years, I was like, I can't figure out vibration. What is this? Like, my phone vibrates, but I don't. So I don't know. It was
Yeah.
never made clear to me. And basically, vibration is just your state of being. Your state of being is just how you feel. There's happiness, there's joy, there's anger, there's sadness. That is all vibration. So,
Mm.
in order to be in an attracting vibration, right, the highest vibration form that there is that's measurable is love. So when you're in that state, and it's not being in love with someone, it's being in love with yourself, being in love with life, whatever activity you're
Yeah.
doing, that kind of feeling. That's when you're in a state of flow. You're in a state of receiving what you want, whether you're realizing it or not.
So those are the perfect times to practice manifesting. It
Exactly.
seems is when you're in that. I just had this conversation too with someone else about I love lunar calendars.
Me too.
And right.
Yeah.
And I love when people say, "Well, now's a great time to manifest. It's a new moon, it's a great time to manifest." And when we think about that, but what I also think about is, well, isn't every day a great time to manifest, not just every new moon, and especially when you're in a positive state? So what I'm hearing you say is that when you're in a positive state of being, that the best time to start creating or writing goals? Or what can someone do in those moments when they're like, "Oh, I'm in love, it's time to manifest"?
Yeah. No, so actually Abraham Hicks talks about this a lot, and it's
Mhm.
just the art of allowing. It's being in a flow
Okay.
state, right? Like, if you are feeling good, then absolutely do it. Like, take advantage of the moment. I'm into astrology, but regardless of astrology, the moon is very powerful, the planets are
It
powerful.
is,
But
yeah.
if you are feeling like crap on that day and you are just mad at the world, it's probably not a good time to do
It's
your
pro
journaling.
That's
you
every
know?
full moon for me. I don't know
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah,
But
same, same. So you just
yeah.
all that matters is how you feel. Like if you're having a bad
Yes.
day, don't force it, and that's okay. You're human.
Mm,
Process those emotions and
love
get
that.
yourself out of it when it's time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that it's not a because here's what I've seen happen going back to what you were saying before, what I've seen happen a lot in the manifestation community, which I think burns people out is, write this down 25 times every day
Mhm.
and eventually you'll attract it. And then I've heard people say, but I never attracted it. And I've been filling out journals for a year and a half, 2 years. And they forget the piece that you just said, the vibrational piece of when you feel good, do it. When you feel like shit, then you may not want to be doing that.
Yeah.
So I think that's such a huge thing is understanding the way that you're feeling at that time. What are some of those denser, heavier, low vibrational emotions that people need to be aware of?
So, from what I'm seeing, I hate to say this because I really preach to my clients that circumstances don't matter. But unfortunately, as humans, they do. When certain
Yeah,
traumatic things happen, you're going to be in a low vibrational state, such as,
sure.
you lost a relationship, or you just lost your job, or maybe, a family friend passed away, whatever it is, experiencing loss or, things just not going your way can really bring you down. So it's just those times where sometimes you want to couch rot and scroll on TikTok for 2 hours. And be
Mm-mm.
aware of that. Absolutely be
Yeah.
aware. Awareness is key, right? But don't wallow in it. Process it, let it happen and move on. But at least when like you're like, I'm in this state, like you know what to do with yourself. I think that's the most important thing.
Is that something that you help your clients with if you've noticed them being in consistent low vibrational states to get them extra help or help them process
Yeah,
what they're going
so
through?
I actually recommend pattern interrupters, and there is a
Mm,
million and one that you can do. But it's something that you have to practice because, let's say you're spending 2 days in this state, right? You've been down for a
yes.
while, like, okay, we're going to day three. It's time to do something to get out of that. We don't want a victim mindset. We don't want to sit and wallow. After a certain
Yes.
point, you realize, okay, this is becoming a state of mind. It's no longer becoming a temporary experience.
Yeah, that's good. Pattern interrupts. That also sounds like it's something that doesn't take a whole lot of time. It's
Mm-mm.
you're what I'm hearing you say is that you're not asking them to meditate for 2 hours
Oh
to
God,
do
no. I
this.
wouldn't even.
It's so funny because I'm a huge meditator, so I'm like, "Yeah, meditate for 2 hours." I'm like, "Wait a minute, that's not realistic, Shannon." So it makes sense. Well, and pattern interrupts
Yeah.
are very subconscious techniques as well, NLP techniques, that can help. So I'm glad that you use that in your practice also, and do you notice another thing that came up, did you notice when you work with people when they're creating their dream life, let's just say you help them process, you help them release, you help them interrupt, get into a healthier state of mind, having a little more higher vibrational states at the time too, does that vision or version of your dream life, does that change sometimes?
I would say let's say like 7 out of 10, it usually
Really?
changes. Like surprisingly,
Yeah.
and it's always at the end. Like once we do all the psychological work, right? We do the custom manifestations and we're at the point to where okay, now you need to take inspired, faithful action. They're like, "Well,
Mm,
I don't really want that anymore. Like now I want, something else." And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome because now the universe is going to still give it to you, right? Like you're going to get it and you're going to be so detached from the
yes.
outcome that you're going to have all these better options just because you opened up your energy."
I love that. And it's so true because from a personal standpoint, I used to have this goal and this dream of, oh my gosh, I want to build like a multi-million dollar business. And I did NLP pattern interrupts. I did NLP work at a training that I went to one time and they helped release some grief related to a past loss that I had, a family member. And after that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not motivated at all for this. And
You're
my
like, "I'm
coach at the
good."
time, yeah, I was like, oh, I actually don't like feel like doing it.
Yeah.
And my coach at the time that I was working with, he goes, well, you were driven by pain. And
Mm,
he goes, if there were ever a negative to releasing something, the negative would be that motivation wasn't there anymore. And he
yeah.
goes, and then you really truly find out what you actually want. So I think that's really powerful that you do that with your clients. So I had to find a new motivation. But I was like, I don't really want to like have this
Yeah.
giant empire. I want to like enjoy where I'm at, have like live simply. And if that changes next year, cool. And then I'll come to you and you'll help me
Right.
manifest it.
And you'd be surprised when you get in that mindset. I have had people do that too, where, at the end of working with me, they're like, nope, I want something else. Then they manifest it, great. And then they come back like 4 months later and like, you know what? I think I want to give that other thing a try. And it happens so much more
Mm,
easier because you're in that state of accepting whatever is meant for you will come.
yeah. And that's a good point too, because sometimes it may not even be that they don't want it. Sometimes it sounds like it could be that the goal is just, it's not a baby step. It's
Hmm.
the goal is just too big for them, and there's some other layers to clear up before they get to that point.
Yeah.
Um, it reminds me of it reminds me of probably last year, maybe 6 months ago, and I reached out to my mentor and I was like, "Hey, I need a little bit of mindset help with this new project, with this new thing I'm wanting to launch." And her first response is, how amazing new layers have showed up for you. And I did like the giant eye roll. I'm like, oh, here we go. But it's true. It's
Yeah.
true. When we're up leveling, new layers do show up. But what is your opinion on that? What do you notice happen when you see people starting to climb those ladders?
Yeah, so I really, and I hope this is relatable, but I really, really
No,
believe
no.
it's divine timing. Um,
Mm,
Everything will come to you when you are ready to receive it, and not only receive it, but ready to keep it. So, sometimes I'll work
mm,
with clients and they'll be like, I've been trying to manifest this for 10 years and nothing's working. I'm doing everything, besides all the psychological and subconscious stuff, it
yeah.
comes down to, is this the right time? And only the universe knows if it's something that you're truly ready for. So that's why, people do the work, they change, they come back 4 months later and they're like, I'm ready to manifest this. And it actually happens because of divine timing.
It was the right timing. I
Yeah.
100% believe in divine timing and not forcing anything. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And what advice would you have for someone who is experiencing this?
Ooh, patience. And that's something, I mean, I've even,
Woo!
I tell you this all the time. I'm always working on being patient. And
Yeah.
as humans, it's hard, like, especially in this
Yeah.
society, because we are in the instant gratification phase. Social media, you
Mm,
get likes right now. You go through the drive through and you have a coffee in your hand in less than 4 minutes. It's insane. So you
yeah.
really have to be able to retract and just absolutely understand that patience is key, and also being in the moment, enjoying where you're at. Like, this moment will not ever happen again. So that's, you just have to, be present.
Be present, be patient, trust in the path, trust in divine timing. It's almost like if something's not happening, what don't they know that they need to know? And maybe
Mhm.
it's extra help from you or extra help with hypnosis. When you notice these, and I know we covered on this a little bit, but when you notice as someone has come to you, and I'm sure you've heard it, I've tried everything. I've tried everything. What advice do you usually have for someone in that situation?
No, you haven't. Because I promise you,
Yes.
you know, if you have not spoken with me, or you have not spoken with a professional, of some sort that does things on a deep, customized, tailored level,
Yes.
no, you haven't. And that's all you
Okay.
have to know.
What was your shift with this that you said to yourself, this has to be customized? Did you initially start doing one size fits all, or did you shimmy it as you went?
No, I figured out myself. I tried everything, right? I said that. I was like, I
Yeah.
have done
Oh, I've done
everything.
everything. Yeah.
I've spent thousands of dollars. This is just complete BS. I don't believe it. And I got to the point and I'm like, this is why. One, nobody told me what the heck vibration is. Nobody told me you have to be in a good feeling and a good flow state while you're journaling. Nobody told
Mm,
me, all of these key things that are literally the the basics of how you can manifest, right? And I'm like, at the time, going through this, my schedule was absolutely nuts. I had my child, I was trying to hustle, work multiple jobs, grow this new business, do all of these crazy things. I had no time to dedicate this. So I'm like, if I can create a process that I know is absolutely proven because it works specifically to that person,
mm.
then this
Yes.
can be foolproof. So I tested it with myself, I tested it with family, and I was like, you know what? I got it. I got to change
Let's see.
people's lives.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I think that's great. Well, could this be tied when someone has this tied to unresolved subconscious patterns? The I've tried everything mindset?
Oh, of course, because you're just at that before you do the psychological work, right? Before you do any hypnosis,
Mhm.
anything, and you're in that point of like feeling so, I don't want to say negative, but you're feeling like,
Yeah. Spade is
yeah,
spade.
yeah, exactly. Like, it's just, it comes down to really understanding that there is always something else that can be done. There's some
Mm,
piece that you're missing. You don't know everything. There's always something to learn. If you do a little bit more research, if
yes.
you talk to the right people that can actually make a difference, you'll understand that a lot quicker.
That's great. I love that. And do you have any additional advice for our listeners on anything related to attraction, manifestation, everything we talked about so far?
Yes, just be very careful where you get your information from because there's a lot of great teachers out there. There's a lot of great people, but the information is very generalized. So just think twice, do your
Mm,
research, but always be open to receiving and take what resonates and get rid of what doesn't.
okay. How would someone know when they're, I mean, I could go on Instagram, type in manifestation, and 500,000 videos will pop up. How does someone know that it's starting not to be aligned or that it won't resonate or it can't resonate with them?
Just
Yes.
think about yourself and what you need. I think that's
Mm,
important first. Like, are they talking about things that you're trying to manifest? Are they giving you anything that sounds unique? Or does it sound like all the same stuff that you're seeing on YouTube? Ask yourself those questions. Like, how genuine does this really sound?
does this sound?
And is
Yes.
it resonating with what you want to create? I think those would be
Mm,
the first couple things to figure out.
that's great. Well, I love the customized approach, the questionnaire. It sounds like that's such a good place to put people on a path of awareness, of understanding where all this crap is coming from and why
Mhm.
they're not able to manifest. And my last question, this has been such a great conversation, but last and most important question to me. You've been given an all expenses paid trip to anywhere in the universe, real or fictional. Where are you going and what's the first thing you would do when you get there?
Mm. Wow, what a loaded question. So I would definitely say, I would like to go to the quantum field.
Oh,
I want to see everybody's everything, my everything. I really want to just be there, and I would like to stay there for at least a year.
I love this. At least a year. Well, I know in time in human if we construct time, that'll be no time for the
Yeah.
quantum. Can you explain if someone's like getting into manifestation and they're still a beginner of this, can you explain more of the quantum field?
Oh, I love this.
And
Okay. So, the quantum field is basically a science explanation of the spiritual realm. I feel like that's how I take it in, right?
same. Yeah.
The quantum field is a place where everything happens. Like they say, we are all connected. The energy that we cannot see, our auras, our transmuted thoughts, all of those things are in the quantum field. So it's like basically being able to see all of the energetic work that you're doing or, that you have in your mind, and all of these different scenarios and parallel cases that you could have are all there.
So it's the place of everythingness.
Exactly.
The quantum field. Yeah. And that's where we're that's where we're pulling all of our manifestations and desires from. And the quantum physics, quantum mechanics standpoint and is a great place to dive in. You see my light flickering? My lights keeps flickering. I'm
That's
just
the
going to
quantum
turn that.
field, and here's us.
They're confirming what you just said.
Mhm.
But do you have some, also another thing is it can be so complicated. And so do you have any recommendations on books or from a beginner standpoint, or do you offer anything that someone can just pick up and read and it's easier and more digestible for them to learn?
So I think some really good beginner advice is the information from Abraham Hicks, also known as
Mm,
Esther Hicks. She's a channel
yes.
for the spiritual realm, but the things that she
Mm.
talks about are very beginner friendly. They're very, I wouldn't say like super customized, but she tells you how you can, discover more about yourself. So I think that would be a really good start to just listen to a couple of her talks, maybe read her book, Ask and It Is Given.
Ask and It Is Given.
Mhm.
Oh, I haven't read that book yet, so I'll have to pick that
It's
up.
a good one.
I believe someone told me that she was having an event.
She's in
And
Orlando every December.
oh, really? Are you going?
I think I am. I think I'm gonna go this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've had a couple clients say that they're going to, and what I used to do is I would pull up YouTube videos of her rants. I called them her
Mhm.
rants, but when she would start to when she starts to channel such amazing things come through from Abraham Hicks, and I would just run and listen to them on
Yeah.
repeat. And because when we're running too, we're in such a more relaxed state of mind. We're in hypnosis. We're in a
Mhm.
runner's high. And so I would just listen to that again and again. But I think that's a great recommendation for anyone who may be new at this,
Yes,
for sure.
definitely.
Well, thank you so much for joining today. Where can people find you if they want to work with you or just learn more about what you do?
Yeah, the best way would just to be go to my website at biancalisette.com.
Okay. And so it's biancalisette.com and then everything's on there. Reach out to her. And I know that she can help you get to your goals and even thinking about hypnosis and manifestation as a combination. If you're a client of mine or you're just popping in and listening and going to her as well for some of that more tailored coaching, setting goals, having that accountability, all the things that come with it, I think would be a great step if you're looking to attract something into your life. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bianca, for joining today. And everyone else, thank you so much for joining us on the Awaken Mind. And we will see you next week.
Thank you so much.